Hey everybody, I'm Andy Wike.
I'm Steve Mawby.
And I'm Jeremy Reeves.
And welcome back to another episode of, we don't know what we're calling this, but it's going to be an awesome conversation about pipes, tobacco, and something super special.
The Tobacco Octagon.
The Tobacco Octagon of mystery and intrigue. And today we're going to be talking about a brand new small batch for 2025, and that's Fires on the Levee.
Very excited about this one.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jeremy, thank you for joining us, of course. I know that your time is super valuable, and we definitely appreciate you spending some time with us and talking about upcoming stuff and new projects and things. I know this is one that's been super close to your heart. Can you tell us a little bit about, just like elevator pitch?
Sure. So, going down to St. James Parish over the years, there were all sorts of really cool things about the history and the lore of the place, and the culture that I just found as fascinating as Perique itself, and sort of a window into how Perique might have become such an important thing to this area for the time that it was. And along the way, one of the stories that I learned was about this ongoing practice of building these really intricate, thought out, tight sort of teepee wood structures that they used for bonfires, and it was built so it could go for a really, really long time. And the reason that they do it now is sort of like in this Santa kind of lore. So Papa Noël, he uses all these fires lined up on the levee as like a guide, and light to be able to bring presents. So now, the story is to kids that Papa Noël won't be able to bring you presents unless he can see.
So you want the kids to play with fire so that they get their presents.
That's
basically.
Right.
I mean, that's
that's just
the tale is all the time.
Right. But the real historical root of this is actually so in Louisiana there are parishes. The reason they're called parishes rather than counties is because there was originally sort of one Catholic parish for each region. And so the parish was on one side of the Mississippi River, but St. James, I'm sorry, the
church,
Catholic parish was on one side of the Mississippi River, but St. James is split across the Mississippi. And so there were people on one side that in order to go to church would have to cross. And so this is laborious. Anybody who's seen the Mississippi River there is
it's
huge.
Quite wide.
It's huge. And so imagine this a couple hundred years ago, trying to traverse that in a little boat with your family. So a lot of
midnight
people,
mass on Christmas Eve.
Right. So a lot of people would just go once a year, and that shows midnight mass on Christmas Eve. And so they started this bonfire thing so that they could find their way there and then back across.
Interesting.
So
this whole bonfire tradition is just it's super local to this one region of Louisiana,
much like Perique,
right? Like that one little triangle kind of area, I think it was 25 miles or something like that, square miles or something like that. That's only where Perique has grown, and it's just really cool to see another timeless sort of tradition from this super culturally interesting place just evolve and take on its own life. There's just this feeling of celebration around this particular festival. And I understand that you actually had the opportunity to talk to Ricky and Barbara Roussel recently.
That's right. They came to visit.
Okay. Yeah. Let's roll.
Very nice, cool people, by the way.
Oh my gosh, I love those guys. You've probably seen them on YouTube or some of our clips. Ricky is just full of stories and has so much wisdom and knowledge, and I had listened to him talk for forever.
He has a walking history for the whole area, and he's so passionate about the things that happened in this little 12.5 mile square region. So
Yeah, no, he rocks it for sure. Cool. Well, yeah, we actually had the opportunity to film some of that interaction. So let's roll that clip.
So I'm here today with two very, very special guests. This is Ricky and Barbara Roussel, proprietors of 31 Farms, along with their son Derek, and they produce the only Perique that C&D uses. They are one of two Perique farmers left in St. James Parish, and I just wanted to ask you guys to share with us a little bit about Christmas traditions from your area. Tell me more about the bonfires. Where did the bonfire practice start? What does it kind of mean culturally?
Oh, it started years and years ago. The grandpas, they would always say, we got to build a little fire because we got to have light the way for Papa Noël to come down. Y'all not going to get any presents if you don't light a fire. That's the only way he could see. He said, there's no street light. He said, so he follows the river and he goes down, and if we light bonfires or fires on the levee, we will bring Papa Noël to the house. That's the tradition that was handed down over generations.
Okay. I understood, though, that before that story, that there was a more practical purpose for the bonfires because there was only one Catholic church in St. James Parish on the other side of the river. And so people would go just to midnight mass because crossing the river was too much trouble. So they allotted families sections on the levee that they could set up bonfires so that they'd have an ability to find their way back home.
Yes.
Is that right?
Like on our side, we had St. Michael's Church. And that's what it was. It was lighting the way to St. Michael's Church. And it was carriages at that time. And people would go to church that way. They lit fires. And that was the street lights at that time. But it was done specifically for Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Barbara, do you have any childhood memories around the bonfires for Christmas?
Well, I lived on a street called Martin Street.
Okay.
And it was my grandfather who had 8 children. And they all lived on that one street. Except maybe one of my uncles or 2 of my uncles. And we would all get together. I mean, I was very little, where Mom didn't even want me to cross the road to go onto the levee, but we would go anyway.
She was a little tomboy.
And we were with all the boys, and we would climb these logs just like the guys would do and help them with the bonfires. And I could remember back then, it was very tall.
Yeah.
I mean, we had at least 25, 30 feet of bonfires.
Yeah, they didn't have the restriction back then.
No restrictions back then. Yeah. But, and on Christmas Eve, my mom would cook a gumbo. And my dad would do raw oysters. And people just gathered and had fun.
That's amazing.
You know?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How are the bonfires made?
And you cannot stand a pole on a levee till November 26th. What they do is we'll take, first of all, we'll select a good straight tree. We'll cut down, most of the time that tree is anywhere from 6 to 10 inches in diameter and 20 foot tall. So you'll cut that one, and then you dig a hole. They allow you to dig a hole 2 feet down in the levee.
Okay.
Top of the levee, and you put it in. There's no nails allowed. You'll put one pole, and then you got a couple people holding that one pole on the edge while you hang the other one. Then you start balance, and then you go back and you do a cross section again. So now you got a pretty steady structure, skeleton.
Well, there is a limitation now. You can't go further than
20 feet.
20 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where
Yeah. When we were kids, we built levees that was 30, 40 feet tall.
Yeah, because there's competition who could build the biggest nest, you know?
Yeah, 75, 80 years ago, it was competition.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, who's going to have the bigger, whether Reserve or Garyville or Gramercy or Hester. It was just, and look, they got judged on those. Now it's judged on what's the prettiest bonfire, who's got the best fireworks shows, which one burns prettier. You know, it's just a different thing. It's a fun deal.
And there are bonfires too that are more like sculptures almost.
Well, that's sculptures because we have an engineering group that's in Garyville, about 6 miles downriver from us. And these guys work for Marathon Oil Company. And they'll go in and draw it something to scale and then build out of small, you could almost say matchstick, but twigs, a replica of what they're going to put on the levee to scale. And they use that to build bigger than life-size structure. And it may be a turtle. One day it's a turtle, one year it's an alligator, one year it's a reindeer.
A tractor, and you showed me photos.
My brother-in-law, which is where we began our family tradition, he passed away 2 years ago. And as a tribute to him, my godchild, his son, built a John Deere 1950, 52, 53 tractor.
It's amazing.
Yep.
The amount of attention to detail that goes into something that you're going to burn.
Yes.
And in some ways, kind of like Perique.
Yeah.
You know, a bunch of hard work that ultimately is just so that somebody can enjoy it.
You're all working to the end product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
pretty
so
cool.
cool. So
That was
cool.
pretty cool.
It's always eye-opening and amazing to like just ask them open-ended questions, and they are such sweet and generous people, and there's so much understanding and knowledge of not just their family lore and history, but the history of the whole region.
It's so cool hearing their perspective of how, like, the bonfire and the whole ceremony around it has evolved. How it used to be judged on size of the bonfire, and then kind of like the creativity and you know, how well it burns and how pretty it looks and all those sorts of things as it evolved over the years. Yeah, just such an awesome perspective on the history there.
And it's such an inset thing that they had to make laws around it. Like they had to like, create regulations.
They're like,
around
guys, you can't make 50-foot bonfires anymore. That's crazy.
A couple of things in that so Barbara talks about that she grew up on Martin Street. What she fails to point out is that all of her family were Martin.
Oh, okay.
So the reason they all lived there was like that was their street.
That was their family street.
And like if you go around St. James Parish, you will see, you know, Matern Road.
Yeah.
And that's where the Matern family lived. And you know, there's Micah Street, and there's you know, Rousel, and so everybody that is there, there's like evidence of their family history in the roads.
Every time I've gone, it's been St. James is a place outside of time.
Yeah.
Like it is a place outside of time. There exists there's these traditions and cultures that are sort of suspended against modernity. Like, you know what I mean? Like even listening to Derek talking about how, you know, even, you know, kids go off to college, and one of the coolest things is like having them come back and have a renewed interest in these things that they never really asked why.
Yeah.
And they never really like question. I mean, even the revival of like Perique for the Roussel family is very much like that. You know, Derek and Ricky wanting to do things like the proper way, like by the book, how things are supposed to be done, and looking at like, you know, memories of their fathers and grandfathers and the way that things used to be done when there were 200 Perique farmers instead of just 2.
Yeah, I know I had a chance to talk to Ricky and Barb when they were in town recently, and Ricky was talking about how before one of their local high school football games, they like cooked a meal for 120 some odd high school football players.
Sure.
Like just in their kitchen or whatever facilities they had.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about like rejecting, the modern, monoculture, whatever you want to call it. You know, before football games for us, they'd be like, hey, we're going to, like Olive Garden or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting like home cooked, authentic gumbo and, made with care for 120 some odd very, very hungry high school football players can attest to the fact that we eat a lot of food. That's so cool. Yeah, it's just amazing to hear all that stuff. I never grew out of the high school football player mentality, as you can see.
It's hard to.
I still eat a lot.
And all belly boys.
Right. And I would definitely rather be eating whatever like homemade Cajun food Ricky is cooking than.
That is one thing too. Like, the food is incredible.
Yeah, and being in their homes, the kitchen is like clearly a place that their family spends a lot of time. Restaurant size ovens and stoves and just things that you don't typically see in somebody's home.
Yeah.
And like everything is built around cooking for a big group of people.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So speaking of like that out of time sort of suspension, the artwork for the 10 this year. Oh man, yeah, Jeremy, this is something that you and I have been kind of flirting with for, probably 5-6 years.
Yeah, I mean, the bonfire story, kind of stuck with both of us, and we've talked about it over and over, and for some reason it never really occurred to either one of us before. Like, oh, this could be something that we could like explore in tobacco, which that was a cool realization you had, and it's really neat. I mean, like, so the artwork, it does sort of take a very folk art sort of approach. The style of the painting on the label itself is actually inspired by a whole bunch of folk art that you and I saw in Nobles, which is this old saloon turned restaurant in St. James Parish. With like the best butter beans ever, like so good. I dream about those butter beans sometimes.
I haven't eaten breakfast yet, guys.
Sorry, yeah. There's no ribs on the.
I couldn't find any ribs this morning.
Yeah, butter beans for breakfast. Now that's a new.
Right.
That's a new one.
I mean,
butter
I'd
beans
be down
and
for that
prawns
too.
and
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah. But what's really funny too is that like Ricky's cousin Ernie painted most of those.
So many of those paintings in the restaurant are by Ernie Rousel.
By Ernie Rousel,
Okay.
yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So this was like the art there is partly inspired by another family member.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. And then even the ones that Ernie didn't do, like they were all folks from that community. Like Nobles is super cool in that like they basically use local artists to basically fill up all of their walls with art, right? And so there's not like, oh, like let's make this like a Mediterranean theme or something, right? It's like, okay, this is St. James. Nobles is St. James. Let's decorate with St. James. So you could see a bunch of like really awesome paintings, like folk art paintings of like the bonfires, like swamps, like this, that sort of like bayou,
birds,
fish,
crabs, and like newspaper and like a beer. Like just things that
still
are really,
still life on the bayou.
Yeah, absolutely. Things that are just really indicative of this time and this place, or this place out of time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's the art. But like, how did we? Let's dive into the tobacco and learn a little bit more about how we're capturing this tradition in the actual tent. So
I'm dying to find out what it tastes like. Let's
crack it open.
Talking about it, get my interest peaked here.
I'm gonna let Steve smell it because you made it. So
you don't get.
You have an advantage. This isn't even a mystery review. I don't know why I said that. What are we smoking?
He just has an advantage by virtue of being Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
really
just
though.
like a life advantage.
I think everyone knows that.
Go ahead and grab my flakes here. So while we're packing this up, Jeremy, one question I have for you So obviously, we've gone over the history and the the cultural moment that is the fires on the levee. So obviously, the Perique makes perfect sense. But since it is a lot of bonfires, a lot of pipe smokers might associate bonfires with Latakia. With this blend, you went with the Perique, obviously, and the Virginias, and then you went with dark fired. What was it about the blend, or was there like a nuance to the cultural moment there that said more dark fired than Latakia, or what kind of informed that decision?
I think that it's hardwood fires that are mainly burning. Obviously, a lot of cooking going on down there as well, and so the smell of food, the smell of the bonfires. This all kind of led me to the sweeter sort of hardwood aroma and flavor that dark fire has. The Perique and dark fired, I think, mingle really nicely together, and then add to that sort of the sweetness created between the Perique and the Virginias in this blend. That to me, it's sort of like with that idea of the smoke of the bonfires, the presence of the Perique in this place, and the sweet notes, if you will, of kin and community.
Okay.
That was kind of where I was thinking. How can I, to the best of my ability, tell a story with what we put together?
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
I've never really considered that, but I do feel like small batch blends in particular, like the experience of smoking one.
Yeah.
Like it is sort of like experiencing a story,
Yeah, it's a lot more personalized than, picking up a blend that you can get anytime or whatever. It's more of a special, unique experience. And yeah, it's a lot more abstract and profound than anything that I would have thought of. So that's why you're you and why you do what you do, and why I just smoke the stuff.
Yeah, I think that telling stories with the Cajun culture, and particularly in St. James Parish, it's how all of these things get passed down. And so yeah, it just seemed like a thing that to really commemorate needed to try and tell a story along the way.
Wow.
Whoa. I really love the way that these tobaccos work together. We've got some vintage dark fired from Kentucky that's playing sort of the smoke note, and then some very nice red and orange Virginias that are adding sweetness there, and also adding sweetness combined with the Perique. There's something about this that reminds me of food. And there's a meaty element to it.
There is a meaty element.
There's also like kind of a not quite dessert, but there's some sweet note there that it feels like something's cooking. It feels like something that you're excited to sit down.
That's a good way of putting it. Like, I feel like I'm just like marinating in something delicious right now.
Yeah, there's
the
like
smell of something delicious.
Yeah, there's like pork in the smoker. There's desserts being baked. There's like a bonfire in the background. Like, it's a whole experience. I wouldn't call it like an everlasting gobstopper, but like I think it's like there is like a I don't know, like a progression to the flavors that I think are really interesting. And the tin note is incredible too. It's a little malty. A little bit of like that mesquite like wood smoke, but mostly I'm just getting like a sweet note, like a sweet Virginia note, like flue cured, a little bit of citrus. There's like a bit of like a creamy thing on the nose. A little bit of funk to it too.
Yeah.
The Perique or whatever.
Perique is always good for that. And I love that sort of umami character that it can bring.
Yeah, Perique is such an interesting component in that, like, you could use it in so many different ways and have completely different like experiences from it, you know.
I was, you probably heard me say this before, but I think of smoking straight Perique as sort of like standing in a really beautifully decorated room with all the lights out. It's like it's so concentrated and so dense that you can't really like see what it has to offer. It's just like a punch.
Yeah.
But adding something like, you know, a Virginia, sort of like pulling back a sliver of the curtain, letting some light in, and you can begin to appreciate like what this tobacco is doing by the way that it interacts with other things.
Yeah.
Sort of like adding, you know, a couple of drips of water into whiskey so that you can kind of experience that, all that it has to offer without just being so concentrated that you can't get any of it.
Yeah.
Same kind of concept.
It seems like the dark fires here are more subtle than I was expecting them to be in the flavor.
Yeah,
In a good way. Like I was expecting more of a bonfire vibe, I guess. And this is like it's a lot more subtle. The sweetness is a lot more prominent. Everything's kind of interacting and playing together very well. You know, just like really subtle. Like the notes are there, but it's not like a heavy dark fire experience.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I think like there is something very like umami about it, but there's also a lot of sweetness. So it's like maple glazed candied bacon kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I like that analogy.
Yes.
Every once in a while, you get some spice notes, and especially as it builds in the bowl, you kind of get all of these characteristics in a more concentrated way.
Yeah, I'm definitely, especially on the retro, there's a lot of like baking spices in there. Yeah, now I just need to go get some maple candy bacon. Because that's a perfect way to describe this.
Yeah, I think you really nailed something there.
Yeah, this reminds me of being at Clark's up the street, where they have like the bacon hanging on the racks with the rolls that it all drips down onto.
absolutely.
That's what this tastes like.
Like even with the buttered croissant, like just being like sort of
Just like
encased
absorbing
in
all of the
bacon
the
grease.
bacon grease. Yeah. And as if I wasn't already hungry enough.
That's the crazy thing, though. It's like this is the first thing I'm smoking today. It's still pretty early. I think this could be like a morning smoke.
I actually think so.
Like despite all of the sort of meaty smoky flavors,
Yeah.
like I was sort of anticipating that this would be more of like an after dinner smoke. But it's actually really nice on a fresh palate.
Well, you say despite all the meaty flavors, as though you can't just have a ton of meat for breakfast.
I forgot who I'm talking to.
But that being said, it's very, like you've got the umami, you've got the the meaty flavors there, but it's very smooth and there's like a creaminess to it. Like this could be an all day, like could be first thing in the morning. I can see myself smoking this pretty much any time.
Yeah, it's got a depth of flavor that I think is pleasant for any time, and it's pronounced enough that you could smoke it after dinner, but it's not so heavy. It's, I would say in terms of strength, barely medium. The thing I always try and do in a blend is think about where certain tobaccos are going to really register in the palate, and then try and balance that so that you get sort of a whole palate experience. That's something that is always important to me. So that you don't just have concentration on the tip of your tongue or concentration flavor in the back of the throat, but like kind of creating a whole experience.
Yeah,
That's super
this is
interesting.
you did a really good job of that on this blend in particular.
It's like
I
the whole
think.
mouthfeel.
Yeah, it's I can't pinpoint any spot in my palate where it's like more prominent than any other. It's just like it's everything, all the way back to the sinuses, to the tip of the tongue, all the way like the back of the cheeks, all those kinds of things. It's like it's hitting like every spot, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm used to thinking about that when it comes to cigars. Like, where does this cigar hit on the palate? I haven't really considered that with pipe tobaccos. Do you feel like, where does Perique typically hit on the palate for you?
So that really depends on, going back to the dark, beautiful room.
Yeah.
Like, smoking straight Perique, it is basically all mid palate, like mid tongue and back. But if you add some Virginias to the mix, that draws more tempered forward. Yeah. Using Orientals with Perique will help kind of bring it up into an olfactory experience more. Like your sinuses are really more engaged with Oriental because they are so naturally aromatic.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's going back to what you were saying about Perique just being an interesting and sort of unpredictable character in terms of the ways that it can move like a chameleon with what it's interacting with. Perique and Burley, it just intensifies that mid and back of the palate sort of sensation. Dark Burley kind of accentuates the spicy character of Perique a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm definitely getting more and more spice as I go through this, especially on the retro. Like my sinuses are tingling a little bit in a way that I very much love.
Yeah, it's sort of like the perfect percentage of Perique.
Yeah, this is
And the dark fire too is like, I agree with you. It's not as noticeable as I thought it would be. It does sort of sit in the background. It's almost like this like smoky ambiance that like is the atmosphere in which you're enjoying these Virginias and Perique.
Yeah, almost like there's just like a bonfire going on in the background, and you're just.
I mean,
hanging out smoking a pipe
again,
right
it
there.
sort of tells a story. It sort of tells a story.
Yeah, it puts you right there. Like I've never been to the farm or to that area, but like I feel like I'm sitting there right now, like in the dark with all those fires burning and just a bunch of people around and having a smoke.
Yeah. There's something like very festive about this too.
Oh yeah.
Like obviously, the like tin art is a bit more holiday related. We have Papa Noël flying over the bonfires and everything, but
Which I really like.
it's certainly not like aromatic.
No.
But I think all the flavor profiles work very well for this specific time of year. It's just like it's a really interesting like entry into the small batch line too. It doesn't. There's things that remind me of Steamworks when it comes to the sweetness and the mouthfeel.
Yeah.
But then I'm also getting like.
Which is a very high compliment from my perspective.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We both love Steamworks here. There's also like a little bit of that Firebird like spice to it. But then there's also like that molasses like sweetness and little grassiness and citrus that I expect from like CRF with Perique. It's sort of just like, there are similarities to some of these other, small batches that have grown and taken on an identity of their own, but it seems wholly unique to me, as it should, of course. But
Jeremy basically made a Voltron small batch here.
it's just crazy.
All their powers are
there's
combining.
only so many different components, right?
It's true.
And this tastes to me very different than anything else I've experienced in this family.
One thing I failed to mention is one particular component. So I mentioned the vintage Virginia, but there's a 2003 red Virginia that I used here. It's the same 2003 red Virginia that historically has been used for bijou.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
it was important to me to try and use that particular tobacco because the connection that I have to it is that was the mainstay Red Virginia component at Cornell and Diehl when I started there.
Oh wow.
They were using a red leaf from crop year 2003 as the red tobacco in every blend that called for it. And that's what they were using when I started. And that was in late 2014. So that struck me really, immediately that like here they are using this very, very vintage leaf at this point. And as we drew down our supply of it, I felt like I needed to find something that we were going to migrate into for Red Virginia for the factory to use and main ingredient things. But I wanted to sort of find some way to like stretch this and use it to really showcase because it was so special. And so the last few cases have just been used for bijou. But this tobacco is I would say as emotionally engaging to me as the story of the bonfires, as the work that I've done with the Roussels.
I was going to say,
so cool.
we've got like the St. James history here with all the bonfires. We've got Cornell and Diehl history. We've got some Jeremy Reeves personal history in there. Just kind of like all of those things blending together very nicely. And that's,
I think it's a really cool like vignette into the relationships that make C&D so special.
Absolutely.
Like our relationships with farmers, our relationships with people like Ricky and Derek, the idea of like identifying and elevating traditions that in this day and age might go away, as a way of preserving them and keeping them around, like even if it's like in a tin of tobacco. Like we're very, very committed to that idea of like upholding tradition, giving it a new spin,
And a good steward of it.
being a good steward like of tobacco, of the hobby, of pipe smoking.
that's one of the things I love about C&D. Like it's everything is just done the right way. Like I did a tour just yesterday, and Bill from the factory was showing everybody around, and just it's always like every time I go back there, I do tours pretty regularly. I learn something new every time, whether it's a different person kind of stewarding the tour, or whether it's just you mentioning something else that I hadn't noticed, or whether it's something changed and you guys are trying something new. There's just always so much going on back there, and it's just taken so seriously, and everything's just done so meticulously. I love the whole approach behind C&D.
I feel like when I go back, I see like little, like what could be little Jeremy's, like, like listening to Jen talk about tobacco. Like I'm like, this is Jeremy in 2015. Like talking to me about tobacco. Like he's so excited, so enthusiastic, so like, honored to be part of this.
It's great to see.
I love being able to have Jen serve sort of like a sous chef when I'm working on developing something. I can put together a small batch of something for me to smoke, and when I think it's ready to do a larger version to really test it out, she's the person I'm going to bring that to. And coming back and seeing her working on something, and she's just like, you have to smell this. Like, I really was struck by this, this combination of leaf just visually on the table as I was mixing it, like seeing the way that she engages with it. But that's true of Billy Joe,
everybody,
and of Ferg, and Colin, a brand new blender that we recently brought into that position.
All of your team, man.
Absolutely.
You have such an incredible team.
And it shows in the product.
And that's the thing too. It's like this is our culture. This is like C&D's culture too. So it's just a really cool product that sort of like encapsulates not only this tradition out of time, but also like this current moment of Cornell and Diehl. And I think that's what's so special about small batch is that it really is like a timestamp of what we're interested in. And the types of tobaccos we're feeling and like what we think is interesting and the kind of flavors that we're going with. So,
I was just going to say, in honor of all of that tradition and cultural history, should we vote on who's got the best bonfire going in here? Who's burning the prettiest?
I don't have any fireworks.
Yeah, we got to work on that for the next video.
what pipe are you guys smoking?
I'm smoking my Il Churchillo Longshank Apple.
Very nice.
One of my favorite pipes.
Very nice.
I am smoking I'm having a look here because the name is odd. Kokenun. I think it's, a second of somebody.
Jeremy just like found a pipe on the side of the road and
British
British
manufacturer.
today.
But I bought this as an estate from Yvonne Reeves when I worked.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of history there in that pipe too.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's very fitting.
I'm smoking a Canadian from Emiliano. Really nice blast on this.
That's a nice little pipe.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, thank you again so much for sitting down with us and talking a little bit about the brand new small batch fires on the Levee. This will be available December 16th, starting at 6 p.m. Really excited to get this one out there, and I know I'm going to cellar this one deep because it's just a really awesome.
I mean, if you're
flavor
a fan,
combination.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Cornell and Diehl, if you're a fan of really old, good Red Virginias, if you're a fan
Perique.
of good,
St. James
great quality Perique, if you're a fan of candied bacon on croissants,
Ribs for breakfast.
any of those things, if you like any of that stuff,
This is the
give
one
this
for
a
you.
try. This is a really, really good blend.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
thank
for
you.
being here, man.
And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.